All right, so a couple things already standing out to me, and that's like I don't know if there's like unfamiliarity with your hero, or just like maybe misunderstanding how your kid's supposed to be used. Um, but let me I can do training range. Um, there you are. But there's a couple important things with Sig. Is that one is like 700 shield is not a lot, right? So we think about a Reinhardt shield, it's literally over double this, and I'm sure personally felt how fast a Reinhardt shield can get melted. 700 HP shield is equivalent to a Winston bubble. Winston bubble explodes, right? Um, so a lot of what you do as Sig is trying to maximize your shield uptime, by just not blocking very much, right? So you don't want to use it's important to understand that the shield doesn't replace cover, right? You don't want to stand here and just shield yourself as Sig. You want to stand here, right? And if somebody throws a cooldown at you, right, or if you expect a cooldown, right, you throw the shield up, you use it, right, and you pull it down, and you still keep playing your cover, right? So shields don't replace cover; they augment cover. They make it better, right? Um, so you don't want to play open areas very much unless you're unless you're moving from one place to another, right? So if you're going to this corner, and you need a backup, you go to this corner, right? Like, you can use the shield to like cover that, right? So you're playing this corner, you're throwing like these balls, right? Like you're shooting, and then you like need to rotate, so you put the shield up, right? You back up, and then you're done, right? So, but if you think about it, like you spend very little time actually keeping your shield up, um, because you don't actually want to take damage. You want to block cooldowns, right? So you want to block Ana sleeps, Ana nades, Roadhog hooks, right? All that kind of stuff, right? But you don't actually want to just soak damage on this because your shield is paper, right? Likewise, you don't want to use shift unless you're sure you're either going to take a lot of damage, like either before a fight, so you're going to get a lot of shield. You can start building health before the fight starts, right? So like, if like for example we're just sitting on Route 66 gas station, we're just sitting there, and an Echo comes up and throws a sticky at you, right? You can shift, eat the sticky, right, and gain some, and go into the fight with more health than you had before, right? Um, but you don't want to do this when a fight is starting or like is about to start, because if you just look at this, right, I'm still waiting for this cooldown, right? This thing is 2-second duration, I believe, and a 12-second cooldown. So every time you press this button, it's 14, maybe 15 seconds. I don't know if the duration is 3 seconds. I think it's 2 though. But it's a long time while you wait for this cooldown, right? So you need to be careful using this cooldown, because it's a big cooldown. Um, and also, what generally ends up using it is you want to stagger your cooldowns, right? So you want to use your shield, right? And you want to use maximize how long it takes for your shield to get burned, right? So you play cover, right? You do the normal stuff, right? You never flash it for very long, right? And you can't. You might have to hold it a bit longer than you used to because the 2.5-second cooldown time now. Um, it just puts big windows up. But like generally speaking, you want to take down your shield as much as you can. And then when your shield finally cracks, right? You're finally out of your shield, right? And you're still getting pressured, right? Then you use your shift, right? And that'll both give you overshield, right? It'll buy time to get healing if you took damage, right? And that's something you also want to do. And it'll buy time for your shield to recharge, right? So at the end of all that, you'll have another full HP shield that you can do this again. And if you rotate your cooldowns perfectly in Sig, depending on how hard you're getting pressured, you can sometimes just hold the place indefinitely. You'll just by the time you're out of shield, you'll have your suck or your hands or whatever you want to call it. And by the time you're out of your kinetic grasp is expired, right, and like the shielding is gone, right, you'll be close to a full shield again, right? So you really just want to stagger and rotate your cooldowns so that you can get you can maximize your uptime, right? So another really important tech for just generally for Sig is that shield. You can pull down your shield while doing a lot of things, right? So during for example, if I'm sucking right now, right, like the problem is the shield's up right now, right? But you can actually pull it down while you're sucking. So if you make a mistake and you start the suck before you pull your shield down, you can just take down your shield anyways, right? And likewise, if you want to rock, right? So if you want to rocking is very risky, right? Because the duration is kind of long, you're slow, right? And it locks you into the animation, right? Oh, I killed him. um, so one way you can cover for yourself when you're rocking, right, is you can just flash a shield while you do that, right? So you just be like, boom, rock, and essentially I lost. Oh, I threw it over his head. I lost no time essentially putting the shield up. And you want to make these habits, right? Anytime you suck, you pull down your shield, right? And anytime you want to rock, you put up your shield, right? And again, you can see it's literally instant, right? So those are things you want to do, because they're just generally good, and they help you maximize your shield uptime, and likewise or protect your health while you're rocking, right? Um, but yeah, the most important thing again is maximizing your uptime on these abilities, right? So we want to take as little damage on our shield as possible, right? And we want to use cover, right? So we don't have to use our shield much. And then we can that lets us save our shift for as long as we humanly can. All right, going back to this VOD. Where are you? You are.
Traveling
Yeah. So if you think about this, right? You left the shield up. You left the shield actually a long time ago. Didn't recall it, right? And then you threw a rock into a shield. So now you actually have like you're gonna use your shift in a second, and you're gonna actually have no cooldowns and no shield, right? So you can use your suck here, right, to avoid dying. And if you think about it, now we have no cooldowns. Our shield's half health, right? And we got 1% ult, maybe, right? We applied a little shield pressure. That's all we did, really, realistically, right? So again, so we talked about this during the scrim as well. You want to play away from these people because you can hit them like you can very easily hit them from like here, right? Or not? Okay, like around here, you can still hit the shield from here, right? So you don't need to be this close, right? And every step further back you are, when they start the rush, is a step further they have to go, right? And that's a really big deal for even if they're faster than you, right? Especially if they're faster than you. If they're slower, if they're the same speed as you, you can sort of like get away with more positioning mistakes because as long as you mirror their movement, you can actually you can still get away from them. But if they're faster than you, you need to start from as far away as possible because they're going to close the distance, right? But yeah, this is playing too close. Again, you don't need to be here to shoot. You can be here to shoot, and it's the same thing, right? It's literally the same thing. You'd still be able to do this damage. Again, you don't need to shield this. Like if you just think about it, what are you shielding, right? You're not even shielding yourself, right? No one can use the shield. No one is also fighting right now, right? So don't shield, right? Like I'm trying to stress this because these are like it may not feel the same as like Ryan mechanics in terms of like shield and preservation and like when you decide to go in, right? But like it's really the same thing, right? It just feels different, but it's conceptually the same. Like don't shield if you don't need a shield, right? Be very comfortable if you make a shield mistake, pulling your shield down immediately because you need to like again like your shield is paper, it's tissue. You just gotta keep it up. This rock is not very good. It's the same idea, right? Like if you don't need to use cooldowns, don't use cooldowns, right? Because if in 10 seconds, if you need this rock right now, you're going to be very sad. Again, right? So this is a sort of a higher level concept. So maybe this is something I shouldn't be explaining right now. But if you think about corners, right? The reason why corners are good is because they act as LOS blockers, right? So if you're next to the corner, right, and you want to, and you're afraid of getting pushed, right? If you're right here, you just walk around the corner, and suddenly nobody can see you, and nobody can shoot you, right? So that's why they're strong, right? But the distance you play from the corner also matters, right? So if you're playing a long-range hero, if you play further away from the corner, you have much more control over the angle, right? So, for example, if there's a Rhine on the other side of the corner, if you're playing close to the corner, right, the relative distance between you and the Rhine is very short, even if he can't see you, right? So what ends up happening is if he steps around the corner, he immediately hits you, right? Whereas, and if you step a little bit too far to the left while you're playing this corner, right, on your side, right, you very easily expose yourself maybe more than you intend to and die to like a Widowmaker or something, right? So the thing is, if you're playing a long-range character and you want to have control of the angle, you need to play the angle actually further away, right? So if you think about it, like if you're a Widowmaker and there's a Widowmaker over here, right? If you play further away from the corner, like if you watch Owen, like he's playing as far away from the corner as he reasonably can while still peeking, right? You actually have more micro control this angle because you just move less relative to how, like you see, your vision changes less relative to how much you're actually moving, right? Because if you move at the same speeds no matter where you're at, so you move here, like you suddenly like I press A here and I see the entire choke, right? But if I do the same thing here, right? I press A here, I see a little bit of the choke, right? And that's a really big difference. And likewise, you can I'm no longer so close that if I walk around a corner, there's a Rhine here, right? So if I'm like peeking this way, right? I turn the corner, there's a Rhine there. I can respond to that and get away before he hits me, right? But if I walk around a corner here and there's a Rhine here, I die, right? Or I take a lot of damage, right? So this is what the problem with what you're doing is you're peeking, like you. I get why you're doing this because like you're like, I don't see the enemy team. I know they're going right. I want to try and mess with them, right? I want to interact with them, right? But the problem is because you're going around this side, right? You're going to this corner as opposed to this corner, right? When you see them, if you look, you see them, and you're pretty far away. But you see them here, and you're very, very close, right? And this is what Owen was saying when, like, if you walk too close to people, you're just going to get caught, right? And going to die. And like, I understand why you're peeking because you want information, right? And you want to like harass and get like build damage, right? Your character does a lot of damage, but you want to peek from as far away as possible against comps that will run you down, right? And you've known that they have a Rhine since the round started because you started really close to their spawn, right? So you want to play away from corners because, or play far corners at the very least. So that like you stand less chance of getting like walking and turning a corner and running into all of them, right? So like imagine if they were all right here trying to push right now, and you walked around this corner and saw them, you would just die, right? But if you walked over here, you would see them, before you even got there, right? You get to this point, right? You start walking this way and be like, oh, I can see them around the corner, and then you start backing up, right? While shooting them as well, right? Um, but these are things you need to consider because your character like does not actually want to be that close to people. There are situations when you can be close to people, and when you're getting aggressive, you can just kind of walk into people if like they're low or something, or like you're up on numbers and stuff, and just make it easier to hit shots or rocks, right? As the case may be. Um, but you don't want to walk into this comp, right? You just think about it. You just don't really want to. So we intentionally play as far away as we can, right? While still collecting information. Right, so like you're just walking way too close right now. This is way too close, right? You don't need to be here to do damage. You can do the same damage from here. Oops.
Activating the barrier.
Okay, you're getting all your cooldowns forced, right? And we could talk about that. We can say that that rock was bad, and it was bad. But why would you felt forced to rock because you were getting run down by a Reinhardt, right? And I just want to emphasize that like if you do your positioning right, like in terms of like playing corners, in terms of playing distance, but with the right spacing, right? A lot of other things just kind of fall into place, right? Your rock usage will just get better, just naturally. You won't be forced to rock at bad times. You can sort of save the rock. I gotta emphasize though, resist the urge to rock on cooldown just because you can, right? Rock is an important cooldown. Your sucks will get better because your shifts will get better because you don't need it as much when you're under pressure, right? Like you had 2 shifts so far and they've both been very underwhelming because one was here when you were too far forward and like your shield like getting pushed and you're getting pushed and like you didn't have the ability to wait for another shield because you're just getting pressured too hard, so you had a shift to walk back, right? So again, your shift got very little value, and the same thing happened here where you got pushed, pull down your shield, you had to use your shift because your shield was up for too long, right? And now the cooldown's not too long, and while you're backing up with this with your shift, right? It got very low value, and then you followed up with a rock, which also got low value. At the end of the day, right? Both your cooldowns get very low value, and you're barely living, right? If this team kept going, like they'd probably be able to just kill you. But the Ryan felt pressure and he backed up, or he stopped the push. But this Zarya could easily keep running you down. The Lucio could keep running you down. The Lucio boops you and you just die, right? And you have no ability to like do anything about the Mei really. So like I just want to emphasize like distance, like the correct spacing, the correct positioning, those like will make everything better, right? So that's what you want to prioritize. Hey, Pineapple. Sorry, I'm also streaming. Hello. Yeah, so if you think about this is relative. So first of all, the corners are relatively tight. So anytime you turn a corner, be very close range to your opponent, right? Just anyone you run into, right? And you think about these ranges are also not beneficial to you. So Sig has a unique property where you can just bounce his shots, right? So if you know there's someone hiding right here, and you saw him, right? You can just not instead of walking forward and trying to get LOS of him to shoot him, just bounce the shot off it and hit him, right? But like if you're not going to do that, you really should not fight this guy because he's massively favored at this range, and you just don't want to mess with him. So that's another shift that got you about 60 HP, right? And when you think about it, right, you still have a full HP shield, right? And you weren't being actively pressured. Now you're in a situation where like you're probably going to get pushed and you're probably going to die here, because you're just missing one of your key defensive cooldowns. Rock buys you some space and he just keeps walking, right? Again, notice how you take this corner, right? So, run to the right here. So you walk around the corner and you walk around the corner like this, and the right immediately greets you, right? This is exactly what we talked about a second ago with that corner, right? So if you want to walk the corner, like you should go like swing out as far as you can to buy yourself space, right? And make the Rhine have to push into you in order to hit you, right? And if he pushes into you, you can see it and you can start backing up, right? Now he's opening up a crossfire with you in the Zen, right? And maybe even have Rock if you saved it, right? But again, you keep getting your cooldowns forced because you're playing too close. And then when you play corners, you play them way too tight, right? You play them way too tight to the corner, you just get hit for free a lot. I'll speed through this. This is kind of a stagger situation. Unfortunate. I'll probably go through one more fight. A lot of your issues are going to just come down to this, so I'll probably just stop after enough, so it doesn't sound like I'm just like beating a dead horse repeatedly.
Barrier in place.
Yeah. So if you're not blocking anything, don't leave your shield up, right? If you're not blocking anything, take your shield down. Don't block, right? keep the cooldown so you have the ability to block things if you need to, right? But don't waste your shield. Right? They're not even trying to shoot your shield. That's really sad, actually. But like, once you block that first melee shot, you should just drop your shield and stop peeking for a second. Right, so your shield is still up, right? Like again, this is very common for like new Sig players, is they just forget about their shield, right? But like, really get in the habit of taking down your shield. Shield is really important. And just leaving your shield up just lets it die for free a lot, or just take a lot of unnecessary damage, right? Because you think about it, this entire time the shield was up while you're dealing with the Reaper, were you using the shield? You weren't, right? Was anyone else using the shield? No one else was, right? And if you look at your shield health now, you're down to 300 a shield, and you just got back to use it, which means that earlier they weren't shooting it when it had 625 HP, and now it's 300 HP, and you just got back to using your shield, which means you lost 300 shield for nothing, right? And that's over half your shield. So I just want to keep emphasizing that, like, your shield is really, really important. So just really manage it, and don't let it take damage for free. And again, you really kind of don't want to take much damage in general, right? You can block with it, sure, but you don't want to block that much with it. Its purpose is mostly to block cooldowns, not damage.
Barrier is unstable.
Right, let the whole shield die. Mine's just kind of giving you rocks. Alright, so I'll probably just end it here. This is kind of a short one. I say as it's already 18 minutes, or 16 minutes. But again, a lot of the issues are the same things. So positioning, play away from people. Take corners wide and far away from the corner, so that you can get information early into the peak. And also away from any dangers that you might run into. So on Reinhardt, you do the exact opposite, right? You think about it, like Ryan wants to be close to people, right? So when you take a corner, right, you take the corner like this, like right against the corner, because you want to hit people, right? But if you're playing any kind of range character, Zarya, Sigma, Hog, I think those are the notable range tanks, right? You want to push wide on the corner, Orisa in some extent. But you want to push wide on corners, because that way you get information that there's not like a Reaper sitting here before you get there, right? And you can shoot him before he can, without him being able to hit you, right? It's just that general concept that applies to almost everything Sigma does. There's certain situations where like you need to push the corner fast, either because you're not afraid, or because you're actually the closer range comp. But the amount of situations that comes up as Sigma are relatively rare, so you don't have to worry about that much. And I'm sure if they come up, we'll address it, and then you'll learn from it because you understand how this corner's concept works. Also, again, be more careful with your cooldowns, especially your shift and especially your shield. Cooldowns you blow very easily for not a lot of purpose a lot of the time, and your positioning forces out your shift. Actually, your shift is kind of getting forced by your positioning. Maybe don't worry about that much. But your shield usage is like, gotta prioritize keeping your shield alive. Don't try to actually block damage. Blocking damage is not the purpose of the shield. The purpose of the shield is to denying angles and blocking cooldowns. Denying angles to be like, down here, there's a guy shooting up there, so you throw a shield at it so people can rotate. But that's like the general idea. And then for your rock, like, just don't use it off cooldown. Good opportunities to rock will present themselves. Don't worry so much about it, about hitting your rocks. Yeah, a lot of times you just kind of use rock on cooldown. Be careful about that. Yeah, if you have any questions or comments, concerns, please let me know. And if you get to this part of the video, DM me what 9 plus 3